Hey guys, and welcome back to another episode of Pardon Our Honesty. I'm Tiffany,
I'm Megan.
and we are giving you topics and things we talk about that we shouldn't talk about. And sometimes they might hurt other people's feelings, but that's okay.
That's what we
It's
do.
truth and it's things people don't want to talk about. So today we're talking about marriage. Why? I don't know.
Well, specifically, maybe anniversaries and, um,
Well,
you know,
it's my anniversary, and of course, I'm working
okay, so how many years have you been married?
16 years.
Okay, so how this conversation came up is because do we know that Ed remembers?
I don't think he remembers today because it's just been so long, and
Okay, so it's 10:30 right now in the morning.
don't do anything.
So you
Like
guys haven't
fancy.
said happy anniversary to each other?
No, he's on his mission, and I'm on my mission to get my work done and get ready for Ava's graduation party tomorrow. We'll do something another time.
So,
Okay.
okay, so I think that goes into a good conversation of expectations of, okay, if you were married your first year, I think people expect kind of like,
Yeah, that you're gonna go all out and do
right,
fancy stuff, but why? Because what if you broke? So to
well,
me, that's also something that couples expect, especially women. We want the romance. We want it to be glamorous and great. But if you're newlywed at 20, hell,
yeah, usually.
you need to save your money to do other things
And
like,
you still can make it special. You can have a little homemade dinner and a little love note, and like you can make it special.
that's not your bougie for you. But yes, I was there once before in my life. Where we did do when we were first married, we had 6 kids total. We were broke. We were both in the military. So of course, sometimes, yeah, you might have had an anniversary, but you got work that day, or you're in the field, or you're deployed. So your focus is not always, okay, I got to make this person feel special. And
And
I think it needs to be every single day.
right. And in your case too, you were older still. So it doesn't mean just because you're 20, you may not have the money. You might be in your 30s,
Yeah.
40s, 50s and not have the funds to do something extravagant. But I think that also comes to like societal pressures
Of course.
where people are like, oh, like the first thing I said is, what are you all doing for your anniversary? So,
Working.
but on the flip side, when we were talking about it, it was almost like we were going to blame Ed, but you didn't plan anything.
No, and when he's
And
talking
if you
about
text him happy anniversary,
no,
see, so
he
like,
called me right before I got here, and when he was planning his trip, I never said. I didn't even realize he was planning the trip and going on our anniversary until I think Wednesday. I looked at the calendar and I was looking at the dates, and I was like, "Oh shoot, Friday is our anniversary." I don't want to make him feel bad because he's hanging out with family and doing stuff. So yeah, go ahead and do your trip. I'm not pissed off for why. We
yeah.
see each other every single day.
I mean, I do think it should be recognized, but I mean, because you've been married, and I think marriages have very hard ups and downs. And so I think when you make another milestone, it's worth saying, hey, we might have had a shit show year, but we're still doing it, you know? So
Yes.
so leading into that, let's talk about, so 16 years is a good time.
Years.
And I'm gonna assume it's not all been roses and butterflies. So let's talk about that. Expectations. So here's what I hear a lot of from older generation people. You hear a mixed thing, but you mostly hear that we quit too early, we divorce so easy,
Yeah.
and we don't learn how to work through the hard. Then I have some of the older people in my life will say, well, you have the freedom to make changes where we didn't really wasn't really accepted back then to
Yeah,
make
that's true.
changes.
Yeah.
You stuck it out.
Yeah.
So what do you say to the person who says that our generation quits too easy?
I would say it's probably true. It's absolutely true.
So
Absolutely.
what do we say to the people who say that we give up too fast?
What would I say to somebody who feels like they've done everything they can and they're just, I'm done.
But what is that? What is everything that you can?
Everything. So this is my second marriage, 16 years. As long as I've ever been married. First marriage was 11 years. And so when I decided, okay, that marriage, we just can't make it work.
Okay, but there was big things in that marriage.
Yeah.
There was infidelity,
So,
and okay, there's a difference. Let's
with
just
Ed, if to say I've done everything I can to make this marriage work, and I've just finally decided it can't, it would mean counseling, not just once, but as many times as we
consistently.
consistent, yeah. Speaking up, which, for me was not always something that was easy. So, like you always tell me, well, if he doesn't know, Tiffany, how can he change it or how can he address it? So, did I speak up about every single thing that was a pet peeve for me that was going to make me leave your ass because I'm sick of this? Going to therapy, being honest, tackling the hard issues like finances, that is the biggest marriage killer. So, are we going to talk about finances? If I'm not going to speak up and talk about the finances, then I just have to be like, well, shit, let it go. Because if I'm not saying anything, he doesn't know the change. And if it's getting worse and worse, okay, that's kind of partly my fault. And then accepting your part in the demise of the marriage or the state of the marriage. Because like you're saying, I can't blame Ed for not saying happy anniversary. I didn't say it either. So he probably like, oh shit, well, I didn't realize that. Oh, babe, I'm sorry. I would have never, whatever.
Right.
But it's accepting my part, changing me first, starting, and then as I change, maybe he will change. So once you've done all of that, gotten advice from friends, I will also say be honest. Be honest with yourself and be honest with those you trust. We ain't running around telling the whole world about our marriage business. I will tell Megan.
Especially people of the opposite sex.
No.
You should not have a best friend of the opposite sex talking about your relationship.
Yeah, ma'am. So if you've done all those things and it just cannot work, then I would say you might consider divorce. But before that, no, you have not done everything that you could to make it work. Because you have a job that sometimes you might hate, but you still go there every day.
Right.
You put on a smile.
You put the effort.
Try to make it better on a daily basis. So all the things you would do to make sure you had a job because you got to have money to live, all those things you would do to make that work before you said, I quit, then that's what I expect you to marry.
I agree. And I think too, I feel like people, when you get married or even like I'm in a long-term relationship, who you are with the person 10 years ago, you both are changing and evolving. And you have to be able, let's say I started off super conservative and super whatever. You shouldn't be afraid to evolve as a person in that relationship and grow together. I think what happens sometimes is that people think they want to be different. They feel like they can't because, oh, that's not who I was, or that's not who but people evolve and change so much. And I feel like you shouldn't hide that part of you, but you have to communicate it.
Yes.
Because to me, I think sometimes it could be a red flag if all of a sudden you're changing everything about you, but you haven't shared it with me, right? You haven't said, hey, I'm really tired of wearing this and this. I think I'm going to try this, and you just,
I think when you say
that's what I think.
Oh, you want to wear red room? Where the hell that come from?
Yeah.
When did you start getting into the red room kind of material,
well,
baby?
That's what I'm saying. You start to question it. But if you guys conversate about it and you talk about it and you grow together, I think a lot of times, I think even now we're all, I think females especially are super independent. And a lot of that, if you go back to how, the male is supposed to be a protector, provider, all this stuff. And we're like, don't touch, I could carry my own bag and don't open my, people get a little, and so I feel like if you can't figure out your roles together. Like, yes, I know that he needs to be in control sometimes, but I need to be in control sometimes too. And I need to communicate. I think you can start putting space between you, feeling like I can't be myself with that person when really you're not giving them the opportunity to really know who you are. Because there's times that I'll see that I'm different around my friends than I am around Nick because he's so calm and he's so
I believe that because I've been there a lot of the time.
But other times, like where I'm like, oh, like the other day I said, I'm going to make a meme because I'm just spilling all the tea to Nick. I'm like, and he goes, I look over, he goes, okay. I'm like, you're so boring. I can't tell you anything because you have no blah, blah, blah. And what happens though in time is I do tell him less. And I would call you or I would call somebody else and be like, listen, what happened at work today? But, and I feel like that could put a distance and that it's who he is, but and I think,
our expectations. So our expectations of our partner, no matter who it is, are they realistic or are they unrealistic?
Fantasy.
Like you're saying, when I grew up, the gender roles were very well defined. The man was in charge. The Bible taught he's in charge. Whatever he says goes. If you don't like it, go pray about it. And I lived that for a long time. But then now I'm like, oh no, Jesus, I got to say something because no, this is not happening. I don't like it. It's pissing me off. And if I don't say something, it's gonna make this relationship really bad. So where do we stop living according to what society and others say in our marriage, and we just are happy to be like, hey, this works for me. It might not work for you, but it works for me.
Right. And I think that's what we have to do is overcome like judgment from other people, because if you want to keep your marriage or relationship, even if you're not married together, you've got to figure out what works for y'all. And if that might be drag out yelling at each other, it might be journaling, it might be texting. Maybe you guys can't talk because you fight, so you text each other. Who are we to judge that that's not a good form of communication? Okay. But I think it comes to from like, I feel like the beginning of the relationship. If you are pretending to be somebody that you're really not, or you're not being authentically yourself, you know, like you're setting yourself up for disappointment or frustrations later. Like if I know that this person is a procrastinator, and I know that you've been true about that from the beginning, a year from now, I can't be getting mad at you about being a procrastinator. I knew that. I could be frustrated, but I can't be acting like, I didn't know that. But if you hid that from me and then we get married and I find out now you're doing all this shit last minute and I want to freaking pull my hair out, that can create issues. Not that I'm saying you should just break up or be divorced, but I think being authentically yourself from the beginning helps a little bit with that. And I feel like it helps build that relationship over time to where you're not trying to fit a mold, I guess.
I would agree with that because I was thinking back to when I met Ed, and I was a wild child. I was like, I'm having and living my best life. If you want to be a part of it, fine. If not, it's okay too.
Yeah.
So he was probably like, this girl is crazy, but she's interesting. So I'm gonna stick around. And I think I told him when we were dating, you're just gonna be my military boyfriend right here. When I leave, we won't be together. And he was like, okay. And now that I think about it, dang, it's been 16 years. What in the world? That was a lot. But I do think being authentically you and saying up front what you want and what you need will help create a foundation for a long marriage. But like you're saying, you're going to change and you're going to grow.
Mm-hmm.
So how do you navigate the changes? Do we just talk about it? Do we just notice? Oh,
I
have to being lazy.
I think you have to talk about it, because I feel like that's a good example. Like if your spouse, significant other, whatever, they're not doing the things they were doing, I think it's worth saying like, yo, what's happening? Because maybe they don't even realize it, or they've gotten so comfortable, like, you're annoying me. Why are you not leaving the house? Why are you not going to, why are you not like, maybe you have to have that conversation, because in reality, in my mind, I'm thinking your boyfriend, husband, whatever should be like your best friend. I should be able to talk to them like I talk to you. I do find that challenging.
I was about to say, no, ma'am, I do not agree with that. I do not agree
Well,
with
I
that.
think it should be, but it doesn't happen. I feel it's way easier to say things to you and be like,
okay, wait,
jumping.
if I was married to you, yes, I could tell you everything. No, no, I can tell you.
So what's the difference between
a guy? He doesn't get it. He's
But
probably
that's why
gonna try to fix it. Two, gonna be like,
but that's why you've got to explain it.
why are you fighting with her? Why is that so important? I don't get it.
Okay, but Edward is also very philosophical.
Not telling. If I was married to you, girl, we would be
dishing it all night.
Man, we would be like, I would wake up in the middle of the night, Megan, let me tell you about what I just dreamed about and what I was thinking about.
Let me tell you what that girl said today at store, which is true. They don't care, but
necessarily as one, they're not detail oriented.
no,
they can describe a story in 10 words
and leave out all the details.
Takes us 100 words to explain the same story, because like you said, we got to put all the context in there and the details. And so, but yes, I would like him to be my best friend. He is my best friend in certain aspects, but like gossiping, no.
Yeah.
Best friend gossiping.
Yeah.
Or like,
yeah, I guess you're right. I'm not going to call Nick every time I want to talk about something, because I'll get this. Oh,
okay.
Okay. Interesting.
Yeah. What are you going to do about that? And that would be
And I'm like, you just killed.
hey, vibe. It was like, you're like, what?
Why aren't you giving me any energy?
No.
That's funny.
I love, yeah.
But I think what you said earlier, is really, I think I'll say the older I get, the more you read and the more you take time in your education, and you do learn how different men and women are. And if you're expecting a man to do the same level of communication and sharing and whatever as you, it's usually not going to
You
happen.
fooling yourself, and you will be at divorce.
You're going to be right. Disappointment. And I
Yeah.
think that's another thing you hear. I've in just this business last 20 years, I've been around a lot of young couples who get divorced.
Yeah.
And it will be like, we just fell out of love, or we just, and I think we've talked about this on our podcast, but I remember when I was 20 some years old working at Pier 1, this old gentleman came in, they were married like 60 years. And I'll never forget when I said, "Well, how did y'all stay married so long?" He said, "Well, one of us, whoever falls out of love has to pull the other one along until they fall back in love." So you're not always in love at the same time. And I think that's an aspect. And I think mentorship. Who is in your life? Because I know if I vent to you, you're not, the first thing you're saying is not break up with Nick. You're saying, have you thought about this?
Yes.
Did you talk about this? You are a positive mentor in our relationship. So who are you surrounding? If you're a 20-year-old couple, you should have some 30, 40-year-old friends that are giving you guidance, not another 20-year-old couple who's doing the same struggle. And I feel like in my first marriage, if we would have had more guidance, more, just people in our lives that were teaching us. And, we probably could have learned to overcome a lot of the things that really damaged our marriage. But we didn't have that. So then you eventually feel alone. You feel very separated. You don't feel connected. And you're like, why am I married? This is not. But if you probably had the right people pouring in and teaching you and you learning, because when you're 22 years old, you have no idea.
You don't know what you do.
I mean, I'm 44 and I sometimes still have no idea. So
Say, okay, where do you find those mentors? Because for me, I did want to associate myself with someone who was a good role model and mentor for our marriage. But because I didn't find that, of course, I made mistakes based on what I saw. And what I saw was, you know, the gender roles
right.
were reversed. The lady was in charge. You do what I say. The man was a little bit docile and kind of, okay, I just want to keep the peace. We keeping this thing moving. So I don't even know where a couple besides church
I was going to say church.
go to find a great mentor for their marriage, because what you're looking for in a mentor is someone to say, you do this, you do this, you do this, and everything is roses. No, baby.
No.
You're gonna do this, and sometimes that shit gonna go left,
Right.
and you're gonna do this, and it's gonna be okay. And then 2 years from now, you're gonna be like, what in the hell is happening right now? But okay, that's your mentor. I mean, that's how you get mentored. That's how marriage is gonna be. So what do you even do with it? I
Right.
mean, how do you find a mentor?
Right.
Where do you
I
find a
would
mentor?
say, leave Johnny alone, my dog. I would say that church, I think work,
Mhm.
and I think extended family. So if you have an aunt, maybe your parents aren't the best, but you have an aunt or an uncle. If I'm at work, like, a colleague that maybe is older, you say, "What can I come to you with things?" Dottie, Madison's no help either. You ask her, Madison's moved off the couch to help. Look at, she's got the legs up on her phone, not helping.
Like, what is that thing? Ooh, let me bite it.
Where we find a
Mentor besides church house.
I think church only, and in church can be negative too, though. You have to find a true, honest couple that says, hey, sometimes our marriage is complete shit.
Yeah.
Or, hey, I've cheated on my wife, but we work through it. Or I cheated on my husband or my spouse. I feel like you have to have honest people. And I think you find that by where you put yourself. So I might go to some church groups. I might look at work, or who's somebody I bond with that's a little bit older. Maybe the gym, you meet some people, and
Mhm.
you just have to put yourself in situations. Maybe you join a group or you do something to meet those people, because otherwise, if it's just you and your spouse and you don't really have any good older friends, you don't have anybody in your family, no aunts, no uncle,
By the event.
you're going to struggle. And then you're going to think that you're just a dysfunctional, because everybody, I think nowadays people are more honest talking about it, but a lot of people hide, and their marriage looks like the best marriage in the world. You look online, you see them out, but you don't know what goes on behind closed doors. And so I feel like if you're emulating what you're seeing, that's a false.
Yes.
and you're thinking, well, they're always happy. They have 10 kids and they have no job, or they have this, and how are they so happy? They're probably not all the time. Now, there are some who have learned how to be appreciative and blah, blah, blah. But I think comparison is the thief of joy. And you're going to think that my marriage isn't as great as theirs or my relationship. And I do think that people have to regulate those expectations. Like you said, nobody's perfect.
No, ma'am.
No relationship's going to be perfect all the time, but communication is key. If you can't communicate with your partner, it's only going to go downhill because you're going to go to somebody else to communicate, or you think they know what you're thinking and they have no idea.
No idea because you have not voiced it at all.
Yeah.
And then I think work-life balance is going to play a part in marriage.
Kids take away. Yeah.
Y'all need to talk about how you going to raise your kids before.
And don't even get me started. If you a blended family, y'all know that I give the warning and she says not to say warning. But
I mean, you do need to still, even if you're a blended family, y'all need to talk about, okay,
exactly
this is what I expect my children to do. This is how I discipline. And if you don't agree and you go into that marriage anyway, don't complain because you already knew what you was getting before you got married.
And that's where that communication is really going to be important. And another thing too, like where we and Madison is still on the couch with her feet up. She does. And Madison is not helping. We said before we started, Madison, please help with the animals. And she is having a best life. Madison, glamour queen, is sitting.
You need to come over here and talk to us about marriage too. That is hilarious. Dottie's like, what are you doing? What are you talking about? Do you not see my face?
I don't know what to do here. My
This is just like marriage.
But
I'm like, this is just like marriage. You're gonna have some days where you're like, oh Lord, what? The cat let out the bag, and some other days you're gonna be like, baby,
well,
you get what you get and just shut and leave me alone.
What I was gonna say before all of that is that where we're from too, we live in a military town. So if you're gonna get into a relationship or marriage with somebody who's in the military or a job that travels, that's probably something you need to talk about. Are you gonna be okay being home by yourself? Are you gonna be okay during deployments by yourself, raising kids by yourself? You know, that the military person's job is the military first, family second. I know they've made some changes, the new army, to be more family friendly, but you really have to know what you're going into, because I think like when I got married the first time, I blindly went into that. And, I know it's different now, but we had, 1 year to 15-month deployments. He deployed every year, either 6 months to out of 13 years, we were probably together 3 or 4 if you added up all the days. So it's like,
that's real hard.
Right. So I think that goes back to that communication, having mentorship. How do you work through that? So I think the fairy tale that marriages are just always so lovely, I think, is the misconception. I think you have to go in knowing they can be lovely, but it's going to be ugly too. Like it's not. There's limits. There's limits. If there's abuse and things like that, those are totally different subjects. But I do think that marriages or relationships can get over infidelity if you take the right steps and you are really committed to getting over that. And for some people, you cannot. So,
that's like you're saying, forgiveness.
Right.
You have to have a bucket full of forgiveness every single day of your marriage.
Yeah.
Because there's not going to be one day that, even if it's a pet peeve, your significant other isn't going to do something to get on your nerves.
There's a lot of pet peeves.
And we're not going to talk about that today, but yes, there are a lot of pet peeves. And can you allow yourself to forgive and not hold it over the person? There's a difference between forgiving and I remember that shit, and every time you do something very similar to that, you're going to get this pissed off plus the new pissed off, and forgiving and letting it go.
Yeah. So if you throw it up in their face every
Yeah.
time, then you're not really moving on.
That's not forgiveness.
No.
And it's going to hurt your marriage because you're going to continue to develop resentment, and that resentment is going to callous over. And then that's when you get to the point where you're like, okay, I just can't do this anymore.
Right. Or there's a mistake in the beginning, and like you said, that resentment grows, and then 2 years later you're saying, I'm done because this happened 2 years ago, but you've never dealt with it or moved on from it. And I think even for people dating, I know we're talking about marriage, but when you're dating, it's the same concept.
Yeah.
Don't spend 2 years with somebody if you're not going to fully be yourself, invest and learn and grow, because the next step is possibly marriage or moving in together or whatever. Learn to grow from that. If not, like, I'm not remarried, been with Nick long time, but we're still constantly growing and learning. But I feel like we have this like bailout because we're separate, you know?
Yeah,
But I
they
feel like,
we out together all.
but we commit to working on things and we commit on communication and working through things. And it'd be very easy for us years
Just
ago
be
to
like,
say, fuck it, I'm done. But we choose each other, which chooses
Yeah.
the work, which chooses the commitment. So I think even young relationships or relationships, you're either in or you're out.
Yeah.
There can't be that like, because if you're in the gray, then you're not fully doing all the.
Committed. So what are some things you recommend for anybody? I don't understand the dating right now.
I don't
I don't
understand.
even know how y'all meet people. This whole I met you on the Snapchat, Tinder, and what's the thing you swipe?
A match or
Bumble and all that stuff.
yeah.
I don't understand. If I had to date right now, I would literally pull all my hair out.
Well, I think with I don't know about dating. I mean, obviously, I still believe, I tell our friends that are dating that we should go out in public and you should meet people face to face. But I think to grow a relationship and keep in a relationship is people are so distracted. Like, you watch couples and they'll go to dinner and they're on their phone the whole time. They're not even talking to each other. Now, maybe we're judging because, maybe they talk to each other for 4 hours and decide to go to dinner. I don't know. But you see, and what activities are they doing to connect? Are you going on walks? Are you going to, dinner? Are you doing activities? Are you going bowling? Are you doing things?
Future. I like
Well, that too. Like, where are we going to be in 5 years together and how do we get there? But really what you see a lot of is they're sitting next to each other on their phone. Or they go to movies where they don't talk. They come home, watch TV, and like there's not a connection. So like eventually, if you're not like deliberately trying to spend time together, like Nick and I do our date nights and we try not to be on our phones. We try to do activities, go to dinner,
Yeah.
make dinner, we never see a movie. So we're trying to like do things, activities, bowling, axe throwing, but just that reconnect, it's very easy to take your partner for granted.
Yeah, very, very.
Very
I'm
easy.
guilty of that because I think right now I'm in the phase of I make all these decisions and I work so hard all day long. When I do finally sit down, I just want to veg out and watch the stupid idiot box. That's television. And Ed is like, well, I don't like TV. He used to like TV. So that's one of the things that changed. He used to love to sit with me and watch TV. Now he doesn't. And I'm like, what happened?
Yeah.
To watch the TV. And so I have to make a conscious effort that, okay, I'm not going to watch TV. I'm going to go back to the office where he typically is and see what he's learning.
But maybe it's like if you had connection time during the day, then maybe he wouldn't care about the TV.
He probably wouldn't.
But if you guys maybe had dinner on the back porch and you guys just talk for 30, 45 minutes, have a glass of wine, whatever. Right. Then you could probably go inside and watch TV for 3 hours and he wouldn't care. But because he's not getting the connection, and that's what I think it's hard. And we do put them last. We work all day.
Yeah.
If you have children, they're priority.
Kids, yeah.
You're tired. At the end of the day, you're like, love you, babe. Good night. Go like that person gets on the bottom. And in reality, I mean, it should be your spouse is at the top of if you're religious, God, your spouse, and then, everybody else.
Yeah.
But we kind of flip that.
Yeah.
Okay, my kids, my work, my job, my da 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 da, and then you're here if I have time. And I think that's what makes that space then between you so much bigger. And sometimes it feels like a chore, but I guess like
Sometimes
you
it
have
does.
to do it regardless. Yeah.
Because we are right now empty nesters. It's just me and Ed and the dog. And so it's kind of weird. Like you're saying is, okay, you want me to do what? I just came from work. I'm just still in that same pattern of I came from work. Now I'm supposed to see about the kids. Oh, hell, they not here. So, okay, then I do stuff around the house. And then I'm like, okay, this is my me time. I'm sitting
Because I feel like in reality, especially with y'all, because you are like an empty nester and whatever, is that I think to me from the outside, I'm like, that seems like it'd be easier to make y'all a priority. But I think you're stuck in this is what I've always done. So what do you mean at 2:00, let's roll down to the park and go for a walk? What do you mean? I still have to work. Well, really, you could do that later while you're sitting watching TV. So like, I think but if y'all aren't communicating it, and if let's just say, and I don't know this is the fact, but let's just say he gets mad. Well, that's not going to help either. You know what I mean? So it's like, but he's not telling you, he's just getting mad and you're like, what's your problem? Blah, blah, blah. There's no communication. If he would just say, I need 45 minutes a day from you, that's it. I'm sure you can make that work.
I can make that work. I would be like, what? But why? I see you all day, every day.
Right. But see, and that's the other thing. being around each other doesn't mean we're spending quality time.
No, it does not.
You know, we could sit next to each other and watch TV. That's not quality
No,
time.
it's not.
We could ride around for work all day, but if we're not talking, if I'm on the phone and you're doing this and you're listening to a podcast and we haven't talked, we're not connecting. So I think the difference between spending time together and connecting is something that's very, different that we have to
Deeper
utilize.
level. It's not just superficial. We're just not in the same space.
Uh.
We are getting to know each other, learning new things about each other, planning something. That is connection.
But don't
Even
you?
sex,
Like,
okay?
yeah.
Should be connection too.
Yeah, and it shouldn't be a chore all the time. But if you were connecting, I feel like that's an easier thing. When you're annoyed with each other and you're mad, then you're like, "That's upset." Let me.
But that menopause stuff is real. So
Yeah.
sometimes
Yes.
have to, this menopause is like,
Yeah.
girl, bye. What do you?
But again,
Yeah.
that's a communication.
Yeah.
Because you both have to work through that. You can't just throw in the towel and say, because of this. I
Yeah.
mean, you both have to work through
Yeah.
that. So I feel like it's easy to go down the hole of this is not going to work, or I'm going to put in the work and get it to where I want it to be. Because honestly, like we both have been married before, like somebody's always going to have something. There's no perfect person.
There's no perfect.
So if I
marriage.
toss you out and I get into a new relationship,
Well, let me talk about it. When you tossed him out and you get into a new relationship, did you deal with your shit? Because you was 50% of the problem
Right.
in that marriage.
right.
So you gonna
probably
take
not.
your shit that you already had and
Right.
bring it into a new relationship and
Right.
expect it to work? No, baby, that's not how this works.
Right. You've got to work on you. And that's why, I mean, we both are. It's one big thing we agree on is counseling. I think everybody can benefit from learning about themselves.
Yes.
Everybody has some kind of something that has happened in their life. It may not be trauma per se, but people have let you down or you've been disappointed or like, and if we don't know how to deal with ourselves and like take care of ourselves and recognize our own feelings and then we bring it into a relationship, then, people say all the time, you have daddy issues, you have mommy issues, whoever, you do have some kind of issue. Do you recognize it? Do you know how to communicate it? Have you dealt with it? Because if not, you're carrying it right to that person. And the first time you don't answer my call, where are you at? What'd you do? You're just going to leave me. You go down that.
And it's so
Yeah. And
it's their fault thinking like that.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think that's true. You're right. You've got to fix your stuff before you go to the next one.
Yeah.
And even if you're in a relationship and you realize you got issues, start working on it.
Start working on it. Be honest with
Yeah.
yourself. Be absolutely honest with
Yeah.
yourself. 5 Love Languages is a book I will recommend.
I agree with that. But I also, last week we were in a leadership academy class and they did the personality test.
Oh, yes.
That's
Love
very
those.
eye-opening too
It
when you
is.
read that because you have a
is.
dominant, you
Yep.
have a submissive, you have a, feeler. Like, I think you're right. You do the love language test together and you do your personality test together.
Yeah.
And
Is
you
that
will
how you-
really learn. I printed them out. I want the whole house to do them because I want everybody to see each other's personality tests. Do you know what I mean? Because there is a dominant personality and there's not. And so I think that's great for couples to do like the love language test, the personality test. Because if I like gifts, but you like physical touch and I keep giving you gifts, you're going to think, what the hell? She hasn't given me 2 hugs today. Right. But I think I am because I'm giving you gifts.
I love it.
Yeah. And that's what I think is hard for people to realize. People receive things so differently.
Yeah. And I'm affirmations and it is quality time.
Yeah. Oh,
Kind of
see,
class
yeah.
a lot because he's like, I just want to spend time with you. And I was like, I just want you to say, damn, thank you. Okay.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. See, so that's where, and to him, he probably thinks that's not a big deal, but it's a big deal to you.
It is a work in progress. It's been at 16 years.
But that's everybody. I mean, if you quit working, then I think the relationship quits working.
Yeah, it will die.
So
if the other person can't carry out that 100% for the next 50 years, it'll probably die.
So don't feel that you're always in a bad relationship or that you're doing the wrong thing. It's just find the right people, work through it, and communicate.
Yeah, patience and forgiveness. A bucket of patience every day and a bucket of forgiveness, unless it's, like you're saying,
it's something.
Abuse, emotional, physical, controlling.
There's lines.
Okay, there's lines. But if it's not those things, then you can make it work.
Yep.
All right, guys. So this is our conversation on marriage. Let us know what you think in the comments below. We do have email. We do have YouTube. We have Facebook and Instagram. Send us some comments. And until next time, bye.